Who cares if it's a polished action movie? It gets my gritty approval any day. Death Wish, the 2018 remake of a 1974 classic. The plot: Paul Kersey, played by Bruce Willis, that's kind of weird to say, is a doctor, husband, and father. He's seen enough death to handle himself in bloody situations, but when one night his wife is killed and daughter in a coma, it sends him over the edge. Now, fueled by vengeance against any crime doers, as well as the men who caused his family to fall apart, he sets off to buy some weaponry. One killing after another. He becomes the vigilante of the 21st century. I don't care what people say, this movie was a lot of fun. Bruce Willis makes for an excellent everyman. He isn't exactly as calm or collective as Charles Bronson, but he definitely adds his own flair to it. He also isn't phoning it in this performance. I was quite surprised at some of the humor and just overall charm he brings to this bloody action movie. Elizabeth Shue plays the supportive and loving wife. There's actually scenes where Bruce, Elizabeth, Vincent D'Onofrio, and Camilla Morrone are all interacting with each other, and it just feels like a natural, friendly conversation. Everyone really does a stellar performance. View Knapp is the main baddie in this movie. He is known as Knox, and doesn't even show up until like halfway through the movie. However, his performance definitely makes up for it. There's a scene in an elevator that had me at the edge of my seat. The humor is just awesome here. I don't normally love Eli Roth's sense of comedic elements, but this had some really funny parts. Oh, and don't think this is a remake in name and character only. They do references to the original 1974 film all over the place. I like how everyone mispronounces Paul's last name as Kersey. What is that? A freaking candy bar? For a $30 million budget. This film didn't quite make tons of dough. At the time I wrote this review, it only made about $24 million, and now it's over $30 million, but it's not by much. I hope we still get a sequel, though, regardless of cash flow. With a runtime of 107 minutes, this film flies by at high speeds. I felt like it was only 90 minutes after watching it. I was quite shocked. However, this does lead to a flaw, in that it does wrap up way too quickly. Come on, don't be afraid to give us more. Make it 2 hours, and we'd have a near-perfect action movie. Now, a near-perfect action movie doesn't make for a 5-star review. There has to be other elements that work too. I feel like there should be some drama in every action movie that motivates our hero even further. Obviously, the fact that Paul lost his wife and daughter to these monsters is enough to send him over the edge, though there is a distinct stinging pain that is jabbed into this character. He sees the violence that is occurring every day on a billboard in a police station. This plays into what I love about this movie. We hear via news broadcasters, radio, and we even see it on the streets, the crime that is occurring all around our characters. Yet everyone is either not paying attention, oblivious, or just not aware of how bad it really is. As human beings, it's usually not until something happens do we see that something must be done. You can either sit in self-loathing or you go out and make things right. Playing back into Bruce Willis's performance, there are some scenes that has to convey loss and sorrow. While I think the loss aspect could have been worked on a bit, his sorrow sometimes was a real tearjerker. There's a scene where he's talking to his brother, and you can just feel it, man. With every brutal kill, you can also see the gore, the effects. It's glorious. We get brains smashed out, tons of bloody bullet hits, and even a scene of excruciating torture. Being shocked that this movie was as bloody as it was is an understatement. Most of the blood is practical too, so that's awesome. The motion picture soundtrack, it's got some good aspects to it. For one, it doesn't feel too modern. It's got some hints of the 80s. is. And if you're wondering if they featured Back in Black by AC/DC like they did in the trailer, they sure as hell do. I kind of hate to say it, but I think this is just as good as the original. Maybe even a smidge better? I know, sacrilege. The thing is, I didn't grow up with watching Charles Bronson as Paul Kersey. And don't get me wrong, I love the Death Wish movies as a whole. This just has a bit more when it comes to presentation. Are there flaws? A few, and even some nitpicks, like why was the daughter putting on a smiley face a mere week after finding out about her mother's death? This movie just rocks, and I can easily see it becoming a franchise if the studio will allow it. Overall, I give Death Wish, the 2018 remake of a 1974 classic, a 4 out of 5. Lion Brian Gatto, host of Horror Show Entertainment. Make sure to like my Facebook page in the description below and leave comments and subscribe.